Republican Party. Every delegate in the hall is on his feet, clapping and cheering, waving the state banners.
Just before President Hoover was escorted in, the decorum of the convention had been interrupted slightly by the crowd around the New York delegation. Crowding around, of course, Governor Rockefeller of New York. And in anticipating the arrival of former President Hoover, a group of photographers had gathered right at the base of the podium. The chairman rapped his gavel, told the sergeants at arms to clear the way, and the photographers were dispersed. So they do mean business. The sergeants at arms, by the way, are wearing red caps. They're quite easily detected.
The first plan was to have Mr. Hoover address the convention by closed-circuit television from his apartment in New York. But even though he is 85, he is still pretty spry, and he decided to come here in person. He and Harry Truman, the only two living ex-presidents, have come to be very good friends in the last few years and speak of each other with great affection and respect, and have even joked about forming a union. He says he takes pride in the fact that while other presidents have had bridges, dams, forests, lakes, mountains, states, and cities named for them, he alone among all Americans has had his name applied to a depression. Hidden at the moment behind the New Jersey banner. I suppose it would be a tired Republican heart that was not stirred by the sight of Herbert Hoover, wouldn't it?
Good-sized demonstration is getting underway, and there's Utah back again with that same beehive we saw 2 weeks ago, David. Bee on top.
State symbol. At the time we didn't know it, said we didn't know what it was, and said we didn't, and we got about 1,000 wires accusing us of being pretty ignorant and saying that is the state symbol. Thrift, industry.
Have been waiting for an opportunity to cheer and demonstrate in behalf of something. Well, they have it. The former president.
My good friend, my good friend, would you take your banners back to their stations, please, so that we can listen to our beloved chief with all of the affection and respect that we have for him. Would you take your state banners back to your stations, please? Thank you.
Oh, we finally identified that yell. We reported earlier that the Texans planned to yell "Viva" whenever they were pleased. They did it.
My good friend, your reception is indeed a demonstration of great friendship.
It kindles a great glow in my heart. Now, I had not expected to speak at this convention. In each of your last 3 conventions, I bid you an affectionate goodbye. My goodbyes, however, did not take. And I have been bombarded with requests to do it again for the 4th time. Now, unless some miracle comes to me from the good Lord, this is finally it. It would be unworthy of this great gathering if I came here merely to receive your expressions of goodwill. I may tell you that when I was a boy, under certain pressures, I was sent regularly to attend a Sabbath day Quaker meetings. They were mostly sessions in silence. There was very little a boy could do about that silence, but this county's told. However, occasionally the Spirit moved Aunt Hannah to rise amid the silence and say she was going to speak her mind. She dealt with moral delinquencies. She always urged the benefits of right living. And Aunt Hannah loved America. Come 4th of July, she sat on the platform at the village crossroads where every year the countryside gathered with reverence to hear the reading of the Declaration of Independence. On those occasions, Aunt Hannah even tolerated the presence of the only Democrat in our village. Now, Aunt Hannah, in her way, was speaking her mind on the forces and ideas which shape our national destiny. And I don't need to tell you that today our country is faced with the gravest of dangers from overseas in all of our history. And I won't comment on the great dangers and the ugly statements which pour in on us, further than to urge that unity of our people on our foreign front is imperative if the preservation of freedom both at home and abroad. And of course we are confronted with many difficult domestic and political and economic and social issues which affect all of our lives. But as I look back over my long years of concern with our national problem, I have come to believe that moral forces and certain forces that are embedded in the soul of America are more important than all of these other issues. Because they lay at the base of solution of all issues. And tonight I will discuss only shortly this one issue. And I hope it will be believed that I speak not alone to this convention, but to all of my countrymen. But don't be alarmed. I can speak my mind on this subject in just 10 minutes. Today, America is in the midst of a frightening moral slump. During the 14 years following the end of the Second World War, our statistics show that major crimes in most of these years have increased about 3 times as fast as the population. And during this same period, since the end of the war, our cities have become increasingly infested with teenage gangs with criminal intent. In a recent year, 740,000 of these youngsters were arrested by the police. But beyond the terrifying warnings of statistics, we can hardly believe that integrity and moral steadfastness are increasing when we witness the constant exposure of state and municipal corruption, and when we daily read blazoned headlines in the press exposing corrupt practices in some of our nationwide services and the fraudulent practices of some of the distributors of our daily necessities. Now all wars, by their violence and their disregard for individual rights, bring an aftermath of a decline in morals. Also, our courts have been robbed in the use of punishment as a deterrent to crime by procedures of which one example will be sufficient for you. In a recent year, there were over 1,700,000 larcenies known to the FBI, and yet there were only 170,000 convictions. That is only 1 in 10. Also, some part of this decline in morals is an infection from communist Russia. I do not need to remind you that the doctrines of Karl Marx and of the communists are a total destroyer of all morals. They declare there is no God. They stigmatize religious faith as an opiate of the people. And Lenin himself declared that their foreign policy must be based on dodges and tricks and untruth. And during the 14 years since the war, these communist conspiracies on their front have poured these poisons into our people. And we have also been brainwashed by another communist basic tenet. They insist that love of country, pride of the people in their history, their ideal, and their accomplishment is wicked nationalism. Ever since the war, the communist fronts and the beatniks and the eggheads have conducted a national chorus of denunciation of this wicked nationalism. Manifestly, our religious organizations and our agencies for character building in our youth are giving devoted service to halt this slump in morals. These agencies have need of every assistance. But there is a latent force in American life which could be a vital help. This nation needs a rebirth of a great spiritual force which has been impaired by cynicism and weakened by foreign infection. You can call it nationalism if you will, but there is an American kind of nationalism which is neither isolationism nor aggression, and embedded deep within it is compassion for distress, both at home and abroad. It is a kind of nationalism which recognizes change in the world and requires that we meet them with forward-looking measures. But the spiritual force of which I speak is also enshrined in one word. That word is America. We do not use that word merely as a geographical term. At one time and even now, for millions of Americans, that word summoned to mine the whole background of our country. This word America recalls that millions of people over 300 years have sought our shores as a refuge from oppression. To these millions, the word America came to mean a civilization unique on earth by the fusion of the attainments of scores of nations. For centuries, the word America, among the great masses of people over the entire earth, has been an emblem of hope, of more security in life and more freedom. And this word America brings back to our minds the great men and women who won for us our independence and then created a government unique among nations. And this word means that our wars were not fought for glory of war, but for freedom in the whole world. It means a country where the doors of opportunity are open to every boy and girl. It means law and order, freedom of choice, culture. It means glorious strides in the advancement of civilization. The word America envisions the rills of freedom springing from our mountains and plains, pouring into a mighty river which refreshes not only our own people, but the whole of mankind. Today, we alone among nations have a multitude of citizens who have sunk to a posture of perpetual apology and seeming shame for our country. And yet today, the fires of nationalism in its higher sense are burning brightly in every nation on earth. We have witnessed the spirit of nationalism give birth to the independence of a dozen nations in the last 10 years. And within the last 5 years, we have seen the enormous revival of France. Now, I don't pretend to you that a rebirth of that spirit which lies within the word America will cure all moral ills. But with it, we might have a revision of some of our school books, for instance. The re-echo of the word America might resurrect conscience away from crime and back toward manhood. It might, by its recall of the rights and ideals of our people, tend to curb excessive demands of pressure growth. It might stimulate anew the initiative and the enterprise of tens of thousands of our youth who are from fear of the future, seeking refuge in the bureaucracies of industry and government. A revival of the meaning of the word America might insist on a revision of our weakened courts, and a stimulation of American nationalism might give support to our defense of freedom. Because I lament the evils and dangers which beset us, I would not have you believe that our nation is in its decline or fall. The American people have rallied many times in our history to meet even greater tasks than this, and they can be rallied again. My friends, you are convened here, and not alone to nominate a president and a vice president, but to declare anew the principles and ideals which must guide our country. Yours is the task to stop this moral retreat, to lead the attack and recapture the meaning of the word America. Thus can opportunity and the spiritual future of your children be assured. And thus you will win the gratitude of posterity and the blessing of Almighty God. Thank you.